So this week's episode of Demon Slayer, we take the show in a direction I wasn't expecting. I am glad that they're sticking to the formula of actually making the characters work to get better. A lot of series would either just completely skip this and say a month, a year has passed, and we would just say, okay, I guess they kind of did their training, they're back on their feet, let's call it a day. Or, when we do get it, it's kind of dry, it's kind of boring, you see it for 5 minutes, you say, okay, you get the drill, you understand what they're doing, now let's speed past this. What Demon Slayer did is, they did a little bit of a time skip here and there. At one point they skipped 2 weeks, and then at another point they'd go like 15 or so days later, so we did cover like about a month or so within this episode, but they did show us a lot of what these characters are going through, and the direction they took it was absolute and pure comedy. Which honestly, that was probably the best direction to go for, because Demon Slayer has had its fair share of comedy and just ridiculous faces and shenanigans throughout its entire run. So to take it in a direction that just lets the animators, the artists, just have fun. Have a blast drawing and detailing these overreacted faces, put Zensu back into the most overreacted point that he's basically ever been in, and just showcase all of these characters in ridiculous situations as basically their bodies bend and break and they try to repair what has been completely and utterly broken. I found this episode to be very charming and pleasant overall. I think you could have easily went more serious and dramatic with the training, but after spending how long in that forest, I think it's good to slow things down, pull back, and just let these characters be what we once seen them as this bunch of goofballs. You know, having Inosuke just get mad, or Zensu freak out, and Tanjiro have to play babysitter. I love seeing these characters back as they once were, especially for characters like Inosuke, who he's been pretty down in the dumps here, so to see some of these scenes literally perk him up or have Zensu punch him in the face, like, it's just good to see these characters back into their pleasant selves, even though they are still badly bruised and broken. And to actually see the training that they had to go through, it's actually hilarious. I love the idea that on one hand, they have to basically get their bodies stretched and basically get their muscles back up and running. And then you'll have this game where you have to test your reflexes, and whoever throws the tea in the face first is the winner for that round, or you just have tag basically. But then you have Inosuke and Tanjiro come back day in and day out because Zensu is just a complete coward, doesn't even want to take his medicine, let alone go to the training. But when he actually goes there, it's literally a goddess field for him. This man is so horny that he sees women that are going to touch him or he'll be around them, and he's like, these bastards are seriously calling this hell? This is my heaven. I just love it. It's so in character for him that the only thing that lets him be his true self, his true powerful self, is if women are nearby or he's passed out. You see the speed, you actually see his power. He did really well in that training, even though he was like loving it because women were touching him. The fact of the matter is he is incredibly strong, he's skilled, but he doesn't have the motivation to really let go and really let his potential flourish. But when you see his speed and how he was actually able to get an upper hand on quite a few people, like, it is impressive while being just so ridiculous and silly, and you can't help but appreciate it. I just felt like this episode, it really went back to the early stages of Demon Slayer comedy, and even though the very early stages to the show weren't my cup of tea for humor, overall, this episode worked really well. At times it was a little overboard, especially with my boy Zensu, but after everything that's transpired, I just kind of kicked back, I relaxed, and I was like, it's good to see these characters act like this. It's so stupid, it's ridiculous that our characters like Zensu just doesn't want to take medicine. Like, even if it tastes bad, you know the medicine's gonna work. Do you want to stay with a body that isn't properly grown? Like, what is your problem? And like with basically every single character, you want to smack them upside the head. Just seeing the ridiculous training that they had to go through, and then poor Tanjiro learning that, you know, there's characters that can do total concentration breathing 24/7, and this man struggles for a few seconds. It's just like, this is the episode that crushed the spirits of literally all three of these characters, and then at other points kind of perked them up and inspired them overall. I was either chuckling or actually belting out a laugh, being like, this is so stupid, but we kind of love it all at the same time. I mean, you don't get to episode 24 of Demon Slayer and don't at least enjoy some of the comedy that's seen here. I can understand if some of it's a little too overboard for you, sure, but there's no way you can make it 24 weeks unless you enjoy some of this comedy in some way, shape, or form. So I think it's gonna hit everyone's funny bone in some way or another. But seeing this silent girl and just how mysterious she is, it's really intriguing. I'm really interested to see what her deal is and why she doesn't speak, and ultimately how she got this powerful, especially seeing the things that she can explode with just her oxygen level. Like, It is ridiculous what some of these demon hunters can do, and it really just continues to put into perspective how far our lead character Tanjiro has to go, which actually is really good, because we've seen him do some badass things, we've seen all the characters do badass things, but to really put into perspective how small in scale he is in comparison to the rest, and he wants to say that he's going to take out Muzan, like, it's understandable why characters will laugh at the face of Tanjiro who says he's going to be the best and he's going to take them out. It's understandable completely. But I will say, even though this was a hilarious episode, I'd say probably 75% of it, basically just comedy and slice of life shenanigans, when it got into the Shinobu stuff, I thought that was the best part of this episode, and it wasn't because the comedy was bad or anything, I just really liked seeing what her deal was, because in the early stages, when we really didn't know a lot about her, I've mentioned how, like, she both seems pleasant, but like an absolute horror fest. And in this episode, we learn that behind that smile that she always wears is a very angry person, which kind of makes sense to a lot of her behaviors and what she said. At first, when she dropped the bombshell that she wanted basically to befriend demons, I was like, okay, sounds a little cliche, but I'll give it the benefit of the doubt. And by the time that kind of like sad story played out, I was like, that's actually really exceptionally well done. But who's to be really surprised at this point? It's Demon Slayer, knows what it's doing. I really appreciate seeing that what she's currently doing. She doesn't understand the idea of how you could feel bad for a demon, someone who hurts humans, but because her sister had basically a similar mindset to Tanjiro, and because she's dead, she had to kind of carry on that burden of someone who just, with every demon she kills, gets progressively angrier and angrier, but has to put on a smile and try to befriend demons and really try to solve what it is her sister was looking for. But now that she's found Tanjiro, someone who has the very similar beliefs and ideals that her sister had, is walking with a demon, she feels like that guilt, that burden, is now passed on to him. And I was like, okay, I was not expecting that. Not only just from her, but in this episode, as, yeah, there was some more downtime moments, some more, just concentration, meditation, but when you drop the bombshell of what went on with the sister, I was like, okay, this is Demon Slayer. Of course, it's going to have its comedy, but it knows how to blend the dramatic with the comedy at this point in time. And I really like that. I mean, there was some questions. I mean, I've seen plenty of people ask, like, what's the deal? When they were in that forest, she was, like, saying some weird things to these demons as she killed them, and it was interesting to finally, actually not that long after, it was kind of brought up with her whole idea of friendships with demons while seemingly wanting to kill them all at the same time, especially when you compare to her reaction to Nezuko and some of her dialogue. It was nice to see why she felt so honestly weird with what she would say, but then her actions would have a completely different angle as what she was saying and versus what she was doing. It was just really weird, and it was nice to finally get that clarity. It wasn't something I was actively thinking about, but once this popped up, I kind of went back to the past episodes. I was like, oh, this actually explains a lot with her prior actions, which you always gotta appreciate Demon Slayer, going back to those smaller details to make it feel like all these characters are pretty multi-layered in their own way. I am interested to see where the final 2 episodes of this season is going to go, because we do have 2 more episodes, not a 24-episode season, not a 25, 26, baby. And I'm really excited to see, because there's definitely a couple of things they could do to wrap up this season. They could give us a big cliffhanger, confirm a second season. They could go back into the action, maybe a smaller self-contained arc of just a minor demon, or maybe it'll be more downtime and just recovery before they set off on their next adventure, roll the credits, and then we wait for season 2. Like, there's plenty of ways they could go with this, but with everything that we've seen in this season so far, it really does feel like we've had a satisfying season, that whatever the final 2 episodes deliver us, we can't really complain even if the quality does dip, which I doubt it will, because really, when's the last time the quality has dipped in the show? It's been a very, very long time. So I'm just excited. Overall, this season and this series in general, it's been such a fun experience to watch, see how the world and characters evolve, seeing the powers, the demons, and just the personalities and stories unfold. It really feels like, yeah, I understand why, an episode like, I think it was episode 19, would trend globally. I understand why this show would get such a mainstream appeal, because yeah, it has that mainstream appeal for its visuals and just its really great fights and humor, but the characters are exceptionally well done. It would be so easy for Zensu to just stay as his over-exaggerated self. It'd be so easy for Inosuke to just headbutt a tree, and so easy for Tanjiro to just be like, I gotta protect my sister, that's all I care about while I pretend to be sad for demons, and, I don't actually take into account that if I don't kill the demon, then a human's gonna die. Like, all these characters, they can have their unique looks on life, they can have their ridiculous humor, their ridiculous anger, and they can have their sympathy for demons, but these characters will all act when it counts. Yes, Zensu's gotta be knocked out or be surrounded by women to be really effective, but you look at Tanjiro, he still kills those demons. You look at Inosuke, he still kills those demons, and he has to grow now that he feels weak. It really does feel like the characters are fleshing out in a really interesting way, and overall this was a hilarious episode with a surprising emotional twist towards the back half of the episode. And yeah, I thought this was a great episode. If I had to pick, though, my favorite comedy scene in this entire episode, I gotta give it to Zensu. I just thought his reaction, I wasn't sure what he was freaking out about. I should have clued in it was because of the women, but I was like, what's wrong with this man? Does he is he just so terrified he wants to get them the hell out of there? And to see his response and to sucker punch Inosuke, no one saw that coming. But what did everyone think of this week's episode of Demon Slayer? The comedic direction, the emotional punch towards the end, what did everyone think? Let me know down in the comment section below. If you did enjoy this video, be sure to drop a like and also hit that subscribe button if you happen to be new. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.